So this is what we're aiming for today, to model a flower in Blender. Okay, so there are several different ways to create flowers in Blender, but this is one way to model a flower. So let's start up by selecting the cube and press X to delete it. Then we can go to the top view and press Shift A, Mesh, Plane, and then Tab and press M to center all the points at 1. Let's zoom in a little bit, and we can hold down Control and right click to create the shape of our petal. And in the end we can just select these two and press F to close it, and then we can press A to select all of them and press F to make one surface. An issue right now is that there is no information, there are no points for us to edit to make different shape of this. We only have the outer edge, so we need to fix this. And one way to fix this is to leave the edit mode and add a new plane, so Shift A, Plane. And now let's look upon it from the top. So G and drag it over the leaf like so. And we can go to edit mode by pressing Tab and right click and go Subdivide. And now we can open up this menu down here and choose how many cuts we want. And I think 10 will do fine. So let's just left click and then press A, and let's just scale it down like so. So it's still all of the leaves inside. Great. If you now hold down middle mouse button and rotate, and let's press G and Z, drag it up. And then we can press X to delete only the faces. So now we just have a grid left. Great, we want that. And press Tab to exit edit mode. Now select the petal, press Tab to edit mode, and see so all of the petals are selected by pressing A. Now look from the top and press Control and left click. Now we can go to Mesh and choose Knife Project. Now this grid has projected itself onto the petal. So we can exit edit mode and just select the grid and press X to delete it. And if we now go to edit mode, and we can see that the petal have a grid. And let's just call this plane petal. Great. And if we want to clean this up, maybe it's too jagged, we can just press this button, auto merge, and then we can press 1 to see all the vertices. And now if we select this one and GG8 slide, we can just clean this up. Like so. And if we want it smoother, we can just right click, shade auto smooth, and then let's just also add a subdivision modifier. And I also want to have some kind of thickness to my petal, so let's just search for Solidify. And let's make this really thin, so we can actually add another 0, so 0.001. Great. And one thing is to make it easier for us later on is let's go to UV editing and look from the top, press A, we can zoom in, all is selected, and now we can go to UV, project from view, like so. We can just select this and scale it up a little bit. And now let's go back to layout. You will understand this later. And now I want to have 7 petals around the center. So the easiest way to do this is an array. So let's start up by adding a empty plane axis, and I want 7 petals. So let's make this rotate 360 divided by 7 petals. So we need to write 360 divided by 7. So we get 51.4 degrees. And if we now take this petal and add a modifier, let's go with the array modifier, scroll down. We don't want a relative offset, we want an object offset. And let's choose the empty. And let's go with 7, like so. Great. Right now this is just completely flat, so we want to change that. So let's enter edit mode, and this is the real leaf. So let's select this part. Let's check proportion editing and press G and Z, and you see the big ring. If we scroll on the wheel, it will show us how much we will affect. So we'll just lower it down like so, and we can take this part and maybe raise it a little bit like so, and then just maybe drip this part down like so. Great. But right now all of the leaves look identical. We don't want that, so we need to apply the array. So let's just go apply, and now we just have 7 petals that are in a group. We don't want that, we want them individual. So let's press P by loose parts, and as you can see, now we have 7 individual petals. Great. So let's just fix them so they are a bit different from each other. We can just drag, give them some individuality. And finally, let's just add the center of the flower. So Shift A, let's go with mesh, and let's add an UV sphere. Let's scale it down, something like that. And let's scale it, so press S for scale and Z. And I want to flatten it down like so. Yeah. And then let's right click and shade out smooth. Perfect. And the last thing I want to fix is to add a stem. Shift A, curve, Bezier curve. Let's rotate it around Y, 90 degrees. Let's look from the side. Let's drag it down, G, Z, and I actually want to look from this axis instead. Down like so, and enter edit mode. I want this to be more straight, and I want this to go down maybe like so. Great. And I also want to add some geometry to this. So let's go down to data and geometry, scroll down and give it to some depth. I want this to be kind of thin like so. And let's press tab to enter object mode, and we can actually also add a subdivision surface to this one so we get really smooth like so. Then this is too thin, so let's just make it wider like that. Great. And the last step is to add some materials. So let's go to the shading mode. Let's zoom in. We can select all of it and press comma, and let's start with the material for a petal. Let's press new. Let's call this material petal. Great. And first off, I want to add a gradient that goes from dark to light. So let's add a color ramp, and we can take the color into the color, and then we can press Ctrl T because we have the Node Wrangler add-on installed, and we don't want the image texture, so we can delete that. But we have the UV, go to the vector, and we can take this vector to go into the factor. And right now we can see it's not completely behaving from dark to right here, so we need to sort this. So let's add an separate by X, Y, and Z, put it over here, and I want it to go from Y instead. And if you now drag this, you can see it goes as we want. But we want another color than black. So let's set this dark color to maybe some kind of purple, dark purple, like so. And this lighter part I want to be like some pinkish color, and maybe add another color, maybe a little more color like so. And we can just drag this up like there, something like so. Great. But I also want to add some stripes to the leaf, and maybe if I want them shiny I can just lower this one, and if I want it not so shiny I can higher, but I think around the middle will look good. But now I want to add some stripes, so let's add a Shift A wave texture. Let's put it here, and we can actually press Ctrl Shift left click, and we can see how this will behave. We can use the same vector into this one, and we can see the stripe like so. Great. And it almost looks correct from the beginning, but I want more, so let's go with a higher scale, around 13, maybe some distortion, and a lot of details I think will look good like there. Great. But I also want to add some noise. So let's press Shift A and add a noise texture. Put it here, and I want we can Control Shift left click here, and I actually want the scale to go up a lot somewhere here, and the details I also want them to go up like so, and I also want to add some colors, but we can use this color ramp. So let's press Shift D, move it over here, and we can actually take this color down here. We just need to see this work for now. And I think, yeah, this looks kind of okay. We can clearly see the stripes. So now I just want to combine these two, and we can just press Control Shift, right click and drag like so. And now we get a mix node. And if we go all the way up, it's only the gradient. And if we go all the way down, it's only the lines. So we want to have it somewhere in the middle. Great. And now let's just add this material to all the petals. And since we before set up the UV, all the stripes will align correctly. Great. And we also need some kind of material for this one, and let's just do it quick and dirty. Let's call this center. And I just want to add a bump to this one. So let's go with Shift A, a bump. Right now we don't have any instructions, but we can plug this into the normal. And I want to add a noise texture. And as before, we can press Control Shift left click. And let's go with really high scale somewhere here. And also really high details. And we can press Control T, set the mapping to from object to vector, like so. And we can drag the texture into the height. And Control Shift left click. We can see that, yeah, great. We're starting to have some kind of structure here. But I want to control it even more, so let's just add another color ramp. Let's put it here. And if we're now starting to drag the black, we can see we lose some dots, but add some other. Yeah, so let's just find the look that we want. And finally, we just add another color ramp because we want to have some color. And I want it to be kind of yellow, not that dark. And if we set this one to pink and set the noise factor into the factor, you can see the lower the area R, it's pink, and the higher up it's yellow. So we want this one to be some kind of dark yellow. Something like that. Great. And finally the stem. So let's just select it, new, green. And we can actually just use the center material to start out with. And let's just duplicate it and call it green instead. And now we don't need the bump, we can skip that. And we just want to have some kind of noise. Yeah, but we want it to be green. Green, yellowish. And maybe a bit shiny, so let's drag down the roughness a little bit. Great. So this is how you model a flower in Blender. Thanks for watching, and if you like stuff like this, please like and subscribe.